What's up, everyone, and welcome to the 31st episode of the Control Freak Podcast, the only podcast devoted to all thing Control in Pioneer and Modern. I am your host, Alex Blackard, or at LessAlex on Twitter. Make sure to follow me there. As always, we are sponsored by Solitary Pro and the Patreons over at patreon.com/LessAlex. Thank you for all the patron members, and if you would like to support the cast and my content, head on over there to consider becoming a patron. And at the highest tier now, you get one free donation deck whenever I do a Twitch stream, so check that out. It's definitely something that people have enjoyed and people have taken advantage of already, so thank you to everyone. And head over to Apple Podcasts if you dig the podcast and give me a 5-star review on there. It really helps. I don't want any 1 stars. I don't want any 2 stars. If you hate the podcast, just at me on Twitter and say your stuff is crap. Today we have a returning guest, Joey Pasco. Joey, how's it going?
It's going great. My Ravens are the 1 seed in the AFC, man.
Already, man.
It's great.
Come
already.
on.
I mean,
so for those that don't know, last time Joey was on, we talked a little football. I'm a Browns fan. He's a Ravens fan. Obviously, if you don't know, they're interdivision rivals, and rivals is a very rough term for the Browns because, I mean, we just got stomped yesterday.
you stumped us earlier in the season, so don't, we traded games there.
I don't. Anyways, your first seed were like not even on the blip on the radar. But yeah, Joey is a former SCG commentator and of course just a all-around Blue Mage. Your Twitter handle is Affinity for Islands, so that tells you about as much as you need to know. But today is a special episode. Usually we're breaking down metagames. We're talking about Pioneer and Modern blue-white or Bant control strategies. Today, it's the last show of the year. We're going to be talking about the best ofs 2019. So some of the categories, just to mention, best commons, basically best rarity at every card. And then we're going to do best format, best deck, best card overall. And then probably the one that's the most fun is best player of the year. And I sent out a tweet and got some reactions on who was the best player, and it was almost general consensus. And I haven't seen your list yet, so this could get fun. This could get fun.
I as soon as you put your answers or your picks in the show notes. So we were talking about it a few minutes ago. So as soon as I saw that, I actually covered it up. So I saw like the first couple picks, but I covered it up. So okay. I kind of only half know yours. So
awesome. Awesome.
We'll talk about it.
Additionally, we have a tweet that a prominent Dredge player sent out, and we'll get into that a little bit later. That'll probably be one of the last things we talk about. Mm-hmm. The long and short of it is he's not very much a fan of hard control and Pioneer, but we'll get to that. But yeah, if you want to dig into it, the best common of 2019. What if you want to talk a little bit about like what you considered and then what your actual one was.
Yeah, so the first card is, without looking and thinking too hard, the first card that popped into my head was Mystic Sanctuary. I feel like that card has so much potential, especially in Modern, but it's got some potential in Pioneer and I mean it sees play other than that, but Modern with the fetch lands I think is the big thing. So I feel like Mystic Sanctuary was the card that I was thinking, all right, what beats this card? Other cards I kind of looked at because I skimmed through like every common from 2019. I went on Scryfall and searched through every common, and cards that jumped out to me were like Skewer the Critics and Opt and Growth Spiral. Opt was a reprint, so I kind of was like, but the card, when I saw it, I was like, oh no, nothing's gonna beat that. It's the same card you picked, Arkham's Astrolab.
This card. I mean, it got banned from Pauper.
Mm-hmm.
It's been crushing in Legacy and in Modern. It's just so much value. It enters the battlefield. You're already getting a card off of it. And it kind of breaks the color pie rule, really.
Mm-hmm.
My buddy sent me a text and was like, "Hey, how's this for a sideboard?" And it was just like 4 like it was blood moons, it was like green cards, blue cards, black cards. I'm like, "What deck is this?" He's like, "Oh, this is Teamer Snow or whatever." I'm like, "You're playing Blood Moon in a 3-color deck? Like, what in the world?"
It's crazy. Like, that card, it's so innocuous too. Like, I'm sure when I first read it, I was like, okay, it's another one of those cards, the chromatic sphere kind of things, prophetic prism, all those cheap artifacts that sort of fix your mana and draw you a card. But the power of Astrolabe being able to, I don't know if it's Astrolabe, but
who knows?
But the power of it replacing itself and fixing your mana, and like the other big part is in a deck that needs that artifact in play, or that wants that artifact in play, like, it matters. Like, you have the Ice Fang Coatl, you have Emery that wants an artifact in play, Mox Opal wants an artifact in play. Like, so obviously these decks, like all these Urza decks, get access to another artifact, replaces itself, and adds to the Metalcraft or affinity mechanics. So
I mean, I don't even think it's close. I think, like you said, Mystic Sanctuary was a consideration for me, but I mean, I own 7 foils of that card. I think that card's excellent.
You can only play 4 in a deck.
You gotta play 4 in Modern and a couple in Pioneer and some in Standard.
I know. I do the same thing. I hate switching cards between decks, so I'm like, I need 5 Teferis now.
Right?
Why?
It's the worst, and you gotta have one for command. Anyways,
yeah.
I mean, it's so good. It's just so solid. It's never going to be bad. It's always at least cantripping, even late game. Like, a lot of cards just lose equity in the late game. This one is definitely not it. So
yeah, and it's a card that you look at, like, the paradoxical Urza lists that are like, it's so good I want to cast it twice. Like, I'm going to return it to my hand and replay it, that because it's that good.
Oh yeah.
It's not just good on the battlefield sitting there. It's like, I actually am willing to pay for it again. But yeah, it's definitely not a card that I saw ahead of time as being as impactful as it was, or as it has been.
Yeah.
But it is hands down the best common that we've seen in 2019.
And the fact that you can filter normal mana into snow mana to play another one from your hand with Urza is just like, oh, that's hot. Like, that was like next level mode whenever I saw that for the first time. I was like, oh, okay, this is what we're doing.
Right.
Galaxy brain.
Yeah, it's just so synergistic with that deck. And yeah, Urza just turns it into Mox Sapphire, like every artifact, but still, it has that synergy, so it matters.
Yeah, absolutely. So, best common 2019, me and Joey both picked Arkham's Astrolabe. And moving on to uncommon, what were your considerations and your ultimate pick?
So the cards I thought about, I thought about Aether Gust because that's been big lately. I thought about Dovin's Veto because that card is immediately slotting into blue-white in multiple formats, and just uncounterable counterspell for 2 mana.
Yeah,
that's good stuff. Then we have the latest, hot counterspell, Mystical Dispute, which is again a card
good,
so much better than I expected. And I didn't even talk about it on my podcast. My co-host brought it up, and I'm like, yeah, I could see that being a sideboard card, And then you play with it, and you're like, 3 mana leak is really not that bad, and the upside of 1 mana leak is so good. So that was a big one. I considered, like, Wilderness Reclamation, but then because of its spawning different archetypes, but these are just ones I kind of quickly considered.
Yeah.
And then there are 2 more. One would be Veil of Summer.
Yep.
And I think that was your pick because I did happen to see that.
Yeah, that is definitely my pick.
And that card, and I'll let you go on about it.
I got some things to say.
But I didn't pick it partly because it's awful, egregious design.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, it may be the most powerful uncommon, or maybe the most impactful on a couple of formats, but I don't want to consider it the best because it being banned almost makes me feel like, well, it's like, the Price is Right. You gotta go under the
Oh
the
yeah,
price, right?
yeah.
You went too far. You went over the mark. And so my pick for best uncommon is Narset, Parter of Veils.
Yeah.
That card, again surprised me. Maybe not as much as these other ones, but Narset being able to really make a huge impact on blue-white control decks in Modern, in Standard, and now in Pioneer.
Oh yeah.
It's just she's a staple. She's a staple
And
planeswalker.
in Vintage. If you're hitting
Yeah,
Vintage, you're
sure.
like you're doing something right.
Yeah, I dismiss the older formats because I don't play them, so I don't want to like make too many assumptions. But yeah, I know Narset's been a powerhouse in Vintage.
Oh yeah. And I mean the fact that she works so well with Gaia Reach Sanitarium, like
Right.
being able to lock your opponent out of the game once they are hellbent is just like insane.
Yeah.
Definitely a good choice. Basically, okay, so spoiler alert, my list is basically just the most busted cards from 2019.
Right.
So,
You have to define best somehow, right?
yeah.
You're like, is most
I mean,
powerful, my favorite, what kind of thing. Yeah.
yeah, definitely not my favorite. Veil of Summer is the most egregious card, in my opinion, that they've printed all year. Yes, including Hogak. I would much rather face down a Hogak than some random 1-mana Cryptic Command.
Exactly. I agree with you.
It's just so much value. Like, and then there's people that were like talking to me and asking why is this card so like busted? Why do blue players specifically complain about this card so much? And it's like, we paid triple blue 1 for this spell.
Right.
And it's not just like random people on Twitter. Like, it's good, respected players saying how egregious and how similar it is to Cryptic Command.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, I think ultimately why it's starting to get popped in so many formats.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, it's just so good.
It is. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I played the Kethis combo deck in Pioneer whenever Pioneer first started, when there was no bans, and then they just, I mean, they destroyed that deck. They just kind of shadow banned that deck because all these other cards like
Oath of
Nissa,
Once Upon a Time.
Yeah, I mean, they just hit everything, and Veil of Summer was in that deck initially, and I'm just like, I was kind of upset because I really liked Kethis.
Yeah. That was a deck I started building, and then they started banning before I ever got a chance to play a single game with it, and I'm like, oh man, oh well. But I was on the same train where I'm like, oh, this deck looks fun, and I think it's going to be powerful, and I was right, but again, it's like too powerful is not a good thing.
Yeah,
I'm in kind of a long-running Twitter argument with a good friend of mine from high school who I used to play Magic with back in the 90s, and he is basically irate that Veil of Summer was banned, and he doesn't seem to get it. And I'm like, it's a 1-mana Cryptic Command. He's like, but it's only for 2 colors, and it's totally reactive, and I'm just like, he says you get things like Thought Erasure, and I'm like, I had to pay 2 mana for that. I don't draw a card, and you may not even have anything worth taking.
Yeah.
And if I take something, you didn't spend mana on it.
Right.
But if I cast something, not only do you get to draw a card off of your 1-mana spell, but I wasted my turn or some of my resources to cast whatever it is you're countering. It's just the fact that it's 1 mana and draws a card. He's bringing up like, oh, blue spells draw cards all the time. Not for 1 mana. You don't get a 2 for 1 mana in blue.
Could you imagine like counter target spell draw a card
for a mana? Yeah.
For 1 blue, people would be losing their minds. People would be if it was like 1 blue mana counter target red or green spell. Yeah, it would be
draw a card.
I mean, Twitter would explode probably. They'd break Twitter.
And this is even better than that because your stuff gets hexproof too. So it's not just it's not just counter a spell. It's also now if you had anything, look, maybe you wanted to cast a Zorius Charm on something like during their combat, and it's like, well, I can't do it now. They're outside of combat, and now when they attack, I can't cast a Zorius Charm either. Like you countered 2 of my spells, or maybe you didn't counter the Azorius Charm, but you saved yourself from it for another
subdued
turn.
Them for the end of it till the next turn at least.
Yeah, it's terrible design. I don't know what made them think that was printable.
Yeah, I mean, 2019 I think will go down as the year that they push the power level, which I personally appreciate. I think it was like Evan Irwin tweeted something to the effect of, I'd rather them print powerful cards and try and push the envelope than have bland, unfun mechanics and cards.
Yeah.
So I do agree with that, but
same here. Yeah.
At the same time, like, bruh, some of these cards are just too far.
Yeah.
So yeah, best uncommon for you, Narset Party Reveals. Obviously, I mean, that card is near and dear to my heart. I picked up all 4 of mine for $7 in the foil before they popped off.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so that was a good pickup. And then, of course, for me, Veil of Summer, card's egregious. I'm so glad it's starting to get popped off in all the formats that I play.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Still legal in Modern, though, so that's...
Wait, is it? I'm getting so confused with the Pioneer ban list and the Modern ban list.
It's Oko and Veil of Summer are still legal in Pioneer or in Modern.
I know Oko is. I wasn't remembering Veil of Summer for some reason. I thought that was banned at some point. Yeah, let's check. I'm very curious to see what formats it's banned in besides Pioneer.
Standard and Pioneer, I believe.
Yeah, that's what it was. It banned in Standard. You're right. It is still legal in Modern. It's so many bannings, too much to keep track of.
That's actually something interesting too that we could talk about a little bit later. Is like theory behind whether we think bannings are not necessarily good, but I don't know. Anyway, let's move on.
Yeah.
So next up is obviously the best rare of 2019. There was a lot of hits. There was a lot of good cards this year that got printed and got banned, and just solid year for rare. Shout out to rares.
Yeah.
Kind of.
It was hard. This was the toughest one. This is one I had the longest list.
Overshadowed by Mythics. I know a lot of people don't like the fact that Mythics are a thing in Magic now, but so Joey, what's your best rare of 2019 and some of the contenders for you?
Yeah, so some of my contenders were Gilded Goose because of how much it enables the turn 2 Oko that we were seeing so often, and of course making an impact. When I saw that, I thought, okay, cool. They have it's a 1 mana accelerant in Standard again, I guess, to replace Llanowar Elves. So I guess they want that. I did not see it seeing play in Modern, and it's kind of a staple.
Oh yeah,
in the Simic Urza decks now. Other considerations were like Force of Negation, which I think has just been such a great addition to Modern for blue decks.
Oh yeah.
Icefang Coatl, which it's every time I play that card, it feels so good. And then cards like Absorb, which that's a reprint. That's it's the one that popped out. I had it on my list. Karn the Great Creator, I had on my list because of the impact he's made. Emry, I had on my list, but I don't think Emry's made the impact yet. I think there's more potential for Emry than she showed so far.
Yeah, the Jeskai Ascendancy deck was really popping
I like
several
that deck,
months ago. Yeah, that deck is sweet, but it's kind of fallen by the wayside just because like the Urza decks are trying to just be like this value deck now.
Right.
And they're like playing like one if at all. So
yeah.
But yeah, I think that card's insane.
Yeah, so that's like it was one that jumped out at me. It's one that I want to see continue to be good. But the top 2 that I had that I narrowed it down to, and I of course went with the one that I play with, were Nissa Who Shakes the World and Teferi Time Raveler. Those I think were the top 2, but Teferi's got to be my pick because, I mean, look, he's your background.
He's the background.
So, I mean, and I don't know if he's your pick, but I'm gonna guess it is because that's. I'm gonna go ahead. What's your pick?
So, I'm so torn on Teferi because on the one hand, when it's on your side of the table, you just feel like a god, right? Mm-hmm. You just cannot lose. You feel great. Even upticking him to like flash in a verdict just feels like you just ended their entire career. But I honestly, and obviously Hogak was excellent this year. I mean, we talked actually last time you were on the podcast. Mm-hmm. We talked in depth because Hogak was the deck at the time.
Right.
And we were saying how Blue-White Control is actually feasting on these decks. And then they did the ban of Bridge from Below, and it kind of got a little sketchy for us. But my pick for best rare of this year is actually Force of Negation.
Okay.
It just gave blue-white, and there was a beautiful like eclipse in this like in Modern where blue-white was just like I felt it was the best. Like it wasn't for very long. It might have been only for a few weeks even, but
Right. I think
we
you're right.
won a GP.
Yeah.
We finally got the dub with blue-white control at a GP. It was just so good. It was able to give you game against Tron, basically against all the bad matchups, right? Against all the big mana decks, against, I mean, everything. Turn 1 Aether Vials, like game 1, you could clip them off that, and like that's huge at stopping those like little aggro decks, those little dude decks.
Yeah.
It's good against Burn, which is huge in my meta, in St. Louis meta.
Sure.
Not so great against, not really where you want to be against Jund, which is like
right. It's the value thing.
Yeah, it's like a 50-50 matchup. In Jund, or Jund is a 50-50 matchup for blue white, so you don't really want it there. But it's so good. It's so damn good.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to 2-for-1 yourself against Jund, but you're willing to 2-for-1 yourself against something like Tron and some of these other bad matchups. I love the card. I feel like that it kind of reignited my passion for blue white in Modern. Prior to Force of Negation, I was mostly on Jeskai, not necessarily because it was the best deck, but it was the deck that I liked playing. I liked, Bolt Snap Bolt all the time. That kind of thing was great. But once we got cards like Narset, Teferi, and then Force of Negation, it was like this is so much fun to play just straight blue white. And that's where I really want to be. I just didn't feel like straight blue white was as playable as something like Jeskai when you get the access to cards like Bolt and some of the other sideboard cards. But yeah, Force of Negation certainly made me feel really confident in playing a deck like blue white. And for the Stoneforge decks, like when Stoneforge was unbanned, I think being able to play the turn 2 Stoneforge and protect it was another big thing. Now, I personally didn't go in that direction. I tried it.
I tried it too. Yeah, it was.
But it wasn't
medium.
my thing.
Yeah, it was pretty medium to me.
But yeah, I think Force of Negation played a big part in those decks. But you brought up something just now. I think you and I know you may have posted like a question or a poll or something on Twitter, maybe like the best, I don't know if it was like the best card for control in 2019.
Yeah.
And there was some discussion about Teferi and or maybe it was Francesco that posted it. It was either you or him that posted.
I think he retweeted it. Yeah.
But I remember a conversation, and I kind of brought up sort of what you did about Teferi. Like, I voted for like Narset because I felt like Narset in the poll was the better card for control than Teferi, because the thing with Teferi is he's just as good against you as he is for you. So it kind of cancels out a little bit.
It's funny because in that tweet I did say that Teferi was my pick, but after thinking about it and like really kind of like thinking about this episode in preparation for this episode, I'm like, dude, that card sucks to play against.
It's bad for control.
I cannot pick that card just because of how bad it is for us. And like, I'm just imagining, I know we don't talk about Standard a lot on this podcast, but if you're playing the Jeskai Fires deck in Standard, if we're playing a mirror match, you have Fires of Invention, I have Fires of Invention, and we both have Teferis. We're literally playing Hearthstone. We can't interact with each other on our turn, and we have only 2 plays each turn. That's Hearthstone. That's Hearthstone.
Build your own Hearthstone. There you go. I love it.
I'm not a huge fan of Hearthstone. If you couldn't tell, I wish that Arena would be on mobile. Please, I would never play Hearthstone ever again.
It's been years since I played Hearthstone, but Arena on mobile would be so great because I'd be able to play so much more Magic in the little in-between moments of my life that I don't have to sit in front of a computer.
Yeah, you're like waiting in the doctor's office or, waiting, whatever. But yeah, for me, Force of Negation, best rare. For you, Teferi. Teferi.
Yep, Teferi Time Rattler.
So, yeah, good stuff. Both, I think, are just excellent, and obviously, we're a little bit biased here, but
a little biased, yeah.
I couldn't pick Oko. I just could not do it. I was like,
well wait, Oko's not a rare. It's a
I'm
mythic,
sorry.
right?
I'm sorry. I couldn't pick Hogak. My bad.
Hogak. Okay.
I couldn't pick Hogak.
I'm with you.
it probably was like, and we don't have this on the best of list, but we can kind of talk about like most dominating card.
Sure.
Just in terms of like how dominating it was, how powerful, how it skewed the meta. I think that you could make the argument that Hogak definitely takes the cake there.
Yeah, and I think we may be back on the topic of dominating cards in like 30 seconds.
Yeah. so yeah. Moving on to best mythic rare of 2019. I got my pick, but what is yours and some ones that you put in the queue?
Yeah, so I have 3 on my list. You know, the pick and the honorable mentions. And again, same as I said for Veil of Summer, like it was so good, you went too far.
Yeah.
Oko, not my pick, but definitely one that I considered. Because it may be the most powerful mythic that we saw, but it wasn't the best for what it did to multiple formats. I would say it was not a card. It's a card I would like to have not seen print, or I
think a lot of people.
Yeah.
Why does it +1? Why couldn't it just -1? It'd have been fine.
Yeah, and see, that's the thing. Like you talk about like dominating cards, and Oko to me is more dominating than Hogak, but Hogak, I feel like I was fine with the ban because Hogak is not a complex card. There's not a lot of play to it. It's power. It's just 8/8 trample.
Oh,
you can get it very cheap. It's Hulk smash. You know, it's like it's nothing. There's not a lot of play to it other than just get it into play and smash, and that's it. But Oko, aside from the costs, whether the mana cost or the loyalty costs, I think it would be a fun card. There is a lot of play to it. There's a lot of decisions. Do you make a food? Do you make an elk? You know, that kind of thing. There's a lot of decision making, and I feel like it's really sad. It makes me sad that Oko was printed the way it was, because I really wish they had hit it at an acceptable power level so that we could play with the card doing what it does, just at different costs. Whether it's a 4-mana card, whether it's I think everybody really agrees with the elk thing should be maybe like a -1 or a -2 or something. You know,
or at least a 0. Like, geez.
Yeah, it's insane. So, that's my thought about Oko and Hogak, and where I feel like I'm not sad about Hogak.
No.
But I think it's
no love lost for that card.
Yeah, the whole Oko thing is sad. The other card that the honorable mention I had was Wrenn and 6, which I never played with, but playing against it, it feels so powerful when it's in the right deck. Now it's fun when your opponent just keeps drawing lands and they're flooded, and you're like, your Wrenn and 6 doesn't do all that much now. Like all you're doing is drawing lands. But my pick for best mythic was Urza, Lord High Artificer, and I feel like that card is what Oko wants to be. It's powerful.
It's very
got a lot of play to it, but I still think it's not too powerful. I think it's at the top of the power level for modern, but it's spawned new decks, and I think it's exactly what they want it to be. It's Urza. He's supposed to be powerful, and he's going to do broken things, but you need to build around him.
This card was $50, maybe even $60 pre-sale, and initially I was like, "Is this good enough for modern?" Because I assumed it was a lot of Commander players, because obviously the interaction with Paradox Engine was like very apparent off the rip. Like I think it was the Command Zone podcast that actually spoiled that card or previewed that card. And the very first thing that Josh Lee Kwai said was, Paradox Engine's busted in this format. Like, this is going to be a thing. And I was like, okay, well, maybe this price is because of Commander. And I was even buying into I didn't buy the card, but like I was hyped up on the card because I was like, okay, I'm going to build an Urza deck and it's going to be nuts. Like, Commander's going to be popping.
But I'm gonna wait until it drops to like $20, right? Like,
and it just never happened. It still hasn't happened.
The same thing I thought, because I'm a big fan of like the Magic storyline back in the 90s and early 2000s. I really don't like it anymore. I haven't liked it in years, but back then it was all Urza, and so to get an Urza card, I'm like, oh, this is great. I have to get the Urza to play with it somewhere.
They had the Planeswalker that you could go online and find out what it did.
Yeah, that was terrible.
But yeah, Urza, I was so hyped on. And I played the Urza deck a little bit. That deck's very good.
Yeah.
But actually, my pick for best Mythic, I'm going opposite of you. I'm just picking Oko. Like,
Yeah.
I don't. It's so good. It just, if you've ever played with it, you're just like, can't lose. You feel like you can't lose. I played it in the Pioneer Kethis deck, and it was just like it answered all of the things that you couldn't deal with. Eidolon or Eidolon of the Red Eidolon. You cannot beat that card in that deck unless you have an Oko.
Right.
Damping Sphere. Like, these are cards that you just can't beat that Oko just squeaky clean deals with.
Answers basically everything but planeswalkers and enchantments, you know?
Yeah. And one thing, actually, so we're recording this on a Monday. I typically record the Sunday night before the podcast comes out, but last night I had Zach Allen on from episode 30, and he said, if you're not playing Oko in your modern deck, you're probably doing it wrong. And he's talking about playing like mono red with Oko. Just like, why not?
Well, Allie Warfield did that, right? Like she did it as a joke, I think. Yeah, I think she must have tweeted something like, I'm going to play mono red and just splash for Oko. And she 5-0'd a league with it.
Oh my God. No way. That's so funny.
That something's wrong when you can do that.
Yeah. And then like and I keep talking about Vintage, but Vintage is so funny to me because I used to play Vintage like back in the day on Cockatrice and had a blast with like Snapcaster Control tinkering into Blightsteel. But it won the very first Vintage tournament, Oko did, by animating a Black Lotus and attacking for lethal. How cool is that? You killed your opponent. Because that's like the thing is like Black Lotus is powerful, but it can't win you the game.
Right.
Well, it just did. Like, yeah. And that was in the finals. That was the last play of the game. Like, that was the last action of the game. Like, that's so dope.
Yeah, it is. And the card is so fun if they costed it correctly.
Yeah. Or just tweaked knobs here and there.
Yeah. That's what I mean by cost. The loyalty too.
I forget who it was on the play design team, but there was like Magic Weekly. You know how they do the thing on Twitch every week? I think it was Melissa Del Toro. She said, we didn't realize that players would hit their opponent's creatures to like stifle their game plan. It's like, really? Like
you didn't think I was going to turn my opponent's 5/5 into a 3/3 if I could? You didn't think that was going to happen?
Like, this Imrakul is now an elk. Huh. Yeah, I think we'll do this. So that was kind of a strange thing to hear because like y'all are a lot of you are former pro Magic players. Like, we should be able to see the lines.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I mean, Oko Broko. Enough said, I think.
I don't know how long it's going to take, but I can't see it lasting in Modern much longer at this point.
Yeah, it's so good. And it's like at the point where Bant Snow is like a deck, and that's just like completely like, why would you might as well. If you're not playing Bant Snow, you're probably just not playing any type of control deck because that is basically the closest thing. You know, it's like the Peter Parker meme. You know, he's got the glasses on. He takes it's a blue-white control. He takes them off. It's Bant Stoneblade. It's Bant Snow. So that's about the closest thing we got in Modern right now. So yeah, Oko for me, Urza for you for best Mythic of 2019. But yeah, moving on, we have best format. Mine is like 100%. I'm locked in. I didn't even have to think about this one.
Same here.
But for you, Joey, what was yours?
Pioneer.
Absolutely. 100% agree. This format, they kind of just dropped it on us, right? They're like, there was no whispers. I didn't hear any. I mean, maybe you're a little bit more informed than me. I don't know if you heard any.
We knew something was going to show up to sort of take another place for Modern, but I didn't know when that was going to happen.
I thought it was historic. I was like, and I was like genuinely excited about historic. I was like, for now, it might be like not great because it's basically standard plus or whatever. But like eventually 2 years down the road, we're going to be looking at a real powerhouse of a format, I think. And then out of nowhere on like a Tuesday at like 9 p.m., they're like, oh, hey, by the way, here's this new awesome format. And then, of course, the market went crazy. There was spikes everywhere.
Yeah.
So I just love Pioneer. I've almost not touched Modern in so long, just because it was like weird. It was great timing in that blue-white control was starting to go down, and then bam, they announced Pioneer. I'm like, well, let's try and figure out this blue-white control deck in Pioneer.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's same here. It's kind of like when they announced Pioneer, my first thought was, oh, but I love Modern so much, and I can tell that Pioneer is just going to suck me away from Modern.
Oh, yeah.
And it made me a little sad. It was bittersweet, but just the potential of a new format that has a new non-rotating format is so exciting right now. And it's a little bit shaky these past few months where they're doing all these making all these bans, and
we're beta testers.
Yes, exactly. And I made a T-shirt that says that. Actually,
that's so cool.
Pioneer beta testers. But the potential that this format has right now, I think makes it the most exciting, and that to me makes it the best format, even though most of the year I would have said it was Modern because I love Modern, and I don't think there's been a point when I hated Modern this year, even when Hogak was around, because like you said, even though Hogak was not good for the format, it was good for blue-white because it narrowed everything. Everybody was fighting Hogak.
Had a target. You're playing like, it got to the point where they were playing main deck Leyline of the Voids. Like, sure, play that terrible card against blue-white. That's fine.
Right. Everybody was crippling themselves against blue-white because they needed to compensate for how terrible their Hogak matchup was. So,
absolutely.
I still love Modern. The thing is, Pioneer's the fresh, new, shiny thing, and we get to build new versions of our blue-white decks now, and so it's just so much more exciting right now.
And dig through time, like enough said. Mic drop. Yeah. Like we could end the podcast right now. But my thing was like, oh man, I get to Gear Hulk into dig through time. I've been wanting to do that for so long.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, Pioneer not close for me. Haven't really played much of Modern, like I said. I play occasionally, just like in I might fire up Moto and just play off stream or whatever. But yeah, Pioneer, absolutely slam dunk.
Yeah, and I'm with you on that. It's a shame because I had just got all the cards to play an Urza deck, and I started playing it. They announced Pioneer, and I'm like, oh man, I barely played with these cards, and I just want to play a different format right now because Pioneer is exciting.
Oh yeah.
I think the last Modern I played was almost a month and a half ago, I think.
Yeah.
So it's a good thing though that we have formats that we love, and so even if we're putting Modern to the side for now, I do think that a month from now, 2 months from now, we're going to see a reason to play Modern again, whether it's new cards from the next set, from Theros Beyond Death, or something that's going to make Modern exciting as well. So we're going to have multiple exciting formats, I think. So don't sell out of Modern just yet, everybody.
Oh yeah, definitely not.
There's been some discussion within my podcast's Discord about selling out of Modern. Like, don't do that. It's not now. Not right now.
Yeah, and that's so for all those that aren't aware, it's MTG Taps. You should go listen to the most recent episode right after this one, or just like if you have a computer and a phone, just listen to them both at the same time.
You could do that, yeah. Just double queuing the podcast. I'm sure that works out well.
So yeah, Pioneer, best format of 2019. Super stoked to have a new non-rotating format. But moving on, we got the best deck. This was a pretty important one, pretty high on the the totem pole here. What is some front runners for you, and then what is your best deck of 2019?
So I really only had two here, and the one obvious one is Hogak over the summer.
Yeah.
We had Hogak Summer. It was the best deck, but I feel like that deck's gone, and it only lasted for a couple of months, right? We had beginning of June Modern Horizons, and end of August Hogak was banned. So we had almost 3 months. And so yeah, maybe it was the best deck at that point.
Yeah.
But I think right now, when I look at 2019 and think what's the best deck, it's Simic Urza. These Urza mid-range lists, basically getting the best of both worlds, where you say, all right, I'm going to play the Urza deck, and I'm going to play Oko.
Yeah.
And I'm going to play Veil of Summer. I'm just going to look at at Alex and Joey's list of best cards of 2019 and just build a deck.
Cram them together, yeah.
And we can splash Teferi in there. You know, you got the Mystical Disputes, the Aether Gust. Like it's basically it's the all-stars of 2019. And I think Simic Urza is the best deck in Modern right now. And I think it's the best deck across all formats. I think it's the one deck that I would say is the best deck in its format.
Yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you. That's what I have as well, is the Urza deck. I mean, it's gone through so many different evolution stages too, where it was originally like Grixis with Goblin Engineer.
Yeah.
And then it kind of like and that was like with the Thopter Sword combo, and then it kind of morphed into like a value Grixis deck where they weren't really playing as much. And then now, obviously, with Oko, there's no reason to not do that. And now they're more of a value plan where they don't even play the Thopter Sword, but it's still just damn good. So
and it's continuing to evolve. Autumn Burchett put out an article on Star City the other day, and it's basically the same kind of like the Simic Urza mid-range deck, leaning towards more control. And Autumn calls it Urza Control.
Awesome.
It's playing 4 copies of Archmage's Charm, which I love to see. I'm like, Archmage's Charm needs to see more play, because that card, that was the card that I was looking at when Modern Horizon was released as something that was exciting. And then I barely ever played it because it really didn't seem to fit over some of the other cards that were available in blue-white. But yeah, now it's seeing play in the Oko decks, or the Urza decks.
Yeah. I got 1 foil Archmage's Charm, so
maybe pick up 3 more before other people start catching on.
Yeah, might be time. But yeah, I mean, Urza, you pretty much said it. Like, it's so good at what it does. It plays all the best cards from this year. It doesn't really care. The mana's great, because of Astrolabe.
It's got Mystic Sanctuary,
Cryptic Command. Like, come on, they're playing Cryptic Command. It's not fair.
It's like the All-Stars of 2019 plus Cryptic Command. That's basically the deck. You can play Karn in there and have the Mycosynth Lattice combo win if you want. Like, some decks have done that. It's Gilded Goose. I don't know. It's just it's crazy.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. So moving on. Obviously, best deck. Both of us picked Urza. Pick your poison with the variation of it. I think the current iteration's obviously the best. But moving on, we have best card of 2019. This one is like, in terms of talking about specific cards, this is the top of the top, the crown jewel. This is if you are a card, if you ever find yourself being a card in Magic the Gathering, this is the award you want to win on the Control Freak podcast.
Right.
So we've talked about a lot, so we can kind of guess what is going to be the front runners here. But what for you is the best card of 2019?
Best card of 2019 for me is Urza Lord High Artificer.
Yeah. Okay.
The same logic I had about versus Oko with the Mythic thing, in the Mythic category, is that Oko may be the most powerful card, but it's wrecked multiple formats, and so I don't want to consider it the best because it's a little too much for us.
Yeah.
So that's my logic there.
Right on. And I respect that, but I'm going to have to go Oko again. I have to. Yeah. I can't not pick
blame
it. You. The fact, it's like Jace. So when Jace was in Standard, would you not say Jace was the best card in Standard?
I would have said Jace was the best card.
It got that banhammer. So, I mean, I feel like Oko's probably heading down that route. Its days are probably numbered in Modern, and it's been pretty much clapped in every other relevant format. But
so the thing with Jace, though, first I disagreed with it being banned in Standard, so that was partly where I was. That's part of the
never.
Thing. Yeah, I thought Stoneforge was the problem, not Jace. But anyway, if you want to listen to that argument, go listen to whatever episode of Yo MTG Taps was released in sometime June 2011. I'm not sure what episode that would have been, but yeah, you can find it. But there was no Modern at the time. They announced Modern a few months later. Jace was on the initial banned list.
Biggest
I was
atrocity.
very angry about that, and I was at a friend's house. It was we used to play like Magic at Joe's house actually.
Yeah,
There's a whole group of us on Thursday nights, and midnight was when the new articles would drop at that point. So Wizards would release their things. Everything was at midnight Eastern time.
Yeah.
So I was still over there playing, and then it was like, oh, here we announced this new format, and everybody's like, oh man, there's a new format. What's on the ban list? Man, I remember ranting about Jace being on that list. That was bad. But,
top 10 anime betrayals of all time is having Jace the Mind Sculptor on that initial ban list. I get it. Like, I don't know. I get it, but like, bruh, come on. All right, this isn't the Jace the Mind Sculptor.
No Oko,
yeah, this isn't the Jace the Mind Sculptor episode. Although every episode of the Control Freak podcast is the Jace the Mind Sculptor episode.
I mean, look at your logo. You know?
Yeah, right. But yeah, to me, it's got to be Oko. It's so dominating. It's so defining of the year. Like when we look back in probably even 2020, but moving forward, we're gonna be like, damn, Oko was a hell of a card, and whether it gets banned or not, it had its time in the sun, you know. So,
I mean, it's already gone from Standard and Pioneer, so the next format is Modern, and I don't know if they would ban it in Legacy, but
yeah, I don't probably not. But
once you hit the top three, you know, the Standard, Pioneer, and Modern formats, I think that's basically like you're wiped out across essentially all formats. And Brawl, you can't even build Oko in Brawl. Come on.
Yeah.
The card I wish I hadn't spent money on in 2019. That's the Oko.
Yeah, right there.
That's the Oko award. That Oko wins that one for me.
Oof. It's crazy. It's still like $25 though.
I don't understand, but
when it got banned, it went from like 30 to 50.
Yeah, that's crazy. Like when it got banned in Standard, yeah, it went up.
Yep.
It dropped for a few hours because
for
it was like 50, and I was waiting I already had the paper copies, but I needed the Moto copies.
Sure.
And I was like watching the price. I'm like, oh, it's down to like 26, and then it went to 27. I'm like, all right, well, I'm gonna buy them now because if I start like tweaking. Bought them at 27. Like an hour later, they were 40, and I'm like, what's going on?
Oh,
dude,
this
is going back up.
Yeah, before there was any bans on Moto, they were $97.
Yeah, that's nuts.
I couldn't play the optimal version of Kethis because they were $97.
Right. You couldn't play any deck because Oko belongs in every deck, and then if you didn't have them, the barrier to entry was $400 worth of Okos into the format. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, it was really rough. But yeah, for me, Oko, for you, Urza, I think both are good choices for different reasons, but they're both just very iconic cards at this point. Especially in Modern. And I mean, Oko is just like a fan favorite, you know? So
yeah,
I know a lot of people on Twitter love them some Oko. Just like the character. It's a cool thing. Like I always joke that because he's like an illusionist and he like turns things into other things, you know how he's like a ripped, you know, definitely not looking like me with the dad bod, but I like to think that's just an illusion, and he's just like he's rocking the dad bod in real life.
Oh yeah,
IRL dad bod.
I think that's a good theory. I think you're onto something.
Or maybe he is just an elk, and anyways.
Yeah.
So moving on, moving on to the last best of here, and this is not a card. This is more of showing that you're just the best player of the year. There's been a lot of awesome and a lot of just like solid play across the board from a lot of people. But what are couple of your considerations and then your best player?
So this is always hard for me because I feel like sometimes it's, you know, who's the best player that day or that weekend. And it doesn't mean they're the best player, period. You know, because there is variance in this game, and you know that's part of it. Not to say that it's really hard to pick a best player. Like you said, there's so many choices of so many great players in this game. And I guess for 2019, the two names that popped into my head, and I'm not going to pick one. I'm just going to say they both get it.
Sure.
The first person I thought of just won the Star City Players Championship. Oliver Tomajko was just earlier in this year, like multiple wins with Dredge, was just killing it earlier in the year, and then came back, you know, and won the Players Championship. And then the other name, of course, on the I guess, arguably bigger stage of Mythic championships, Javier Dominguez
Yeah.
just showing up like like always at the top of the standings in every like Mythic championship. I mean, maybe not everyone, but it seemed like that. I was just like, how is this guy consistently winning?
So he won Worlds right at the beginning of the
Right.
year. The fervent champion, which is awesome.
Exactly.
And then he top 8'd 3 MCs or 2 MCs.
I don't have the stats. I just know that his name just kept showing up.
Yeah, and his
like
I saw on Twitter his win percentage was like 71 or 72% or some nonsense like that at MCs, which is
that's incredible,
insane. So my pick. So I considered a couple of other people. Oliver Tamico was one I had tweeted out a couple of days ago in preparation for this podcast. Who was the best player of 2019? And I had a lot of people say Tamico, just like you said. Somebody suggested Allie Warfield. So that was one that, like, her story from going never have top 8ing an SCG to like winning the top 8ing the GP and then almost taking down an MC was like incredible.
That was awesome.
And to just like see it kind of develop on Twitter was like really cool if you follow her. And then like the like hashtag casualties of Warfield kind of started popping up. So that was cool to see. But Chris Kvartek, oh my God, who is this guy?
Right, just out of nowhere.
Chris Kvartek, if you're listening to this, you have an open invitation. You can come on the podcast. We'll talk standard for a day, and you can just tell us how you crushed this entire season. Because holy smokes, it was incredible. Like he was, I had never heard of him. Not to say
no, same here.
Like he just arena grinder and just like crushed it. Top 8'd 2 MCs and has made a name for himself. Has built a brand out of thin air, basically.
Yeah,
so,
I'm sure it doesn't seem that way from his perspective. You know, a lot of players, they play for a while and suddenly they get a break. And I mean, he caught that train and stayed on. So that's another good one.
And he was at the MC at the most recent one. He was playing like a Sultai deck with no Hydroid Crazes, and just like crushed it.
Yeah,
like. Wow, like that's insane to me. He's going against the grain, building his own decks, doing his own testing. I'm sure he has like a team, but like not at all the resources that like some of these other players with like good tournament pedigrees would have access to.
Exactly.
So Chris Kvartek, but in the end, it is Javier Dominguez. You can't deny that. That when I saw that stat, I was like on the fence. I was pretty sure I was gonna pick Dominguez, but when I saw that stat of 71 or 71, it was either 71 or 72. Like that's insane. You're just crushing. You're crushing the best players on the planet.
Yeah.
So Javier Dominguez, the fervent champion. That card is sweet. I love the art. How he's holding the championship trophy is like his sword. So I mean Javier Dominguez.
It's cool that Wizards printed a card for the world champion. Like I think that's something
they needed to do forever.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like the invitational cards back.
Right, exactly.
And did you hear the reason why it's named Fervent Champion?
I don't recall.
It's so Hazarat, the Fervent, the god.
Right, Hazarat the Fervent.
He loves that card, so he wanted to be the Fervent Champion.
Oh, I like it. That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. And that card's just like really good too.
Yeah.
So shout out to Javier Dominguez. You are the Control Freaks Best Player of 2019 award. So congrats. I don't know if you ever, maybe listen. We'll shout him out.
Why not? Yeah.
So that's the best of part of the episode. We're going to talk about this tweet here that popped up just a couple of days ago. Now, whenever this goes live on the 29th of December, this might be kind of an old topic, but I think it's worth mentioning, and I think it's worth discussing just because this is the Control Freak podcast. And let's read this. So it's at MTG Sodek. Am I saying that right?
Yeah. Yep. I mean, as far as I know, yeah.
Yeah. So, and I quote, unpopular opinion, hard control decks like Blue White and Pioneer are worse for the format than any combo deck. Playing 45-minute versus tower defense deck and losing to a top-decked Fourth Verdict or Elspeth, I'm assuming that's or Elspeth makes me want to quit Magic. I'm wasting time to see if my opponent can top deck. Fun. End quote.
Yeah. So the first thing that strikes me is that this is Sodek, who is known for playing Dredge, which is
because that deck's fair.
Yeah, which is potentially like one of the most hated archetypes in Magic. Now, I don't hate it myself. I've played it, but still, it's a funny thing. It's very ironic to me that the Dredge player is saying that control is not good for the format.
Yeah.
Now he's talking about Pioneer, so it's not modern, but still.
Also, when you told me he plays Dredge, the first thing that popped in my head was he isn't used to losing to blue-white, because Dredge has that's like the worst matchup for blue-white.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
So he's not used to like just quote-unquote randomly losing to a top deck. So I don't know. I don't like the take. I mean, obviously, you and I are not going to like this take. Probably a lot of listeners probably not going to like this take. But I think like a lot of people in his comment section are just like kind of blowing him up about it. Like, get good. Somebody right here says play more discard and value spells, bub. Like,
yeah, I think it's interesting because, my take on it is not what you might think, right? Like the way I see it is the problem. Let me actually look at the tweet again, because I know you've scrolled down a little bit. Yeah. But so he's complaining that basically blue-white takes too long to win, and it's like, okay, if that's a valid opinion, but if the best win conditions for blue-white are Teferi and getting an emblem and tucking itself, then that's what we're going to play. Like, we're playing the best. I will certainly take a card. If you want to print a card that's like, if there are no non-land permanents on the battlefield, you win the game.
Yeah,
sure,
absolutely.
I'll play that real quick. You don't need to wait 45 minutes, and I've won. How about that? Or if you control any planeswalker, if you control an emblem and there are no non-land permanents on the battlefield, you win the game. Your opponent controls no non-land permanents. Like, I'm just making these up off the top of my head. I know I'm not. These aren't balanced cards, but my point being, like, I'm not opposed to winning immediately, but Wizards needs to print the tools. So now, people are asking about, like, what about like Ojutai, Dragon Lord Ojutai? Like, that's a great card, but it does nothing. The card does nothing until you're ready to win. And you have a card like the card that I brought up, not the greatest clock in the world, but it plays a role early and it plays a role late, and that's Celestial Colonnade. We don't have that in Pioneer, but in Modern you have this card that's like, all right, it's a land. I can use it as a land until I'm ready to turn the corner and win the game. And now it's a clock. Yeah. The reason that cards like Pearl Lake Ancient and Dragon Lord Ojutai are not making the cut, even if they're in the discussion, and sometimes maybe people are trying them. I'm not saying they never see play, but it's because they don't do anything until later in the game, and you can't afford in a control deck to have blanks. Yeah, you just can't afford all these blanks, and the card is a blank until it's a win condition, and that's kind of the way I see it. So it's like, okay, fine, I agree. Taking this long to win the game is not ideal for the format. Then Wizards needs to print us better win conditions, not like ban blue-white from the format. Whatever it is that he's suggesting that they do.
I definitely here's a tweet in a response from Francesco, actually. This tweet is exactly what Azorius players love to see, and then he says, keep it up, Islands in front, because Skura commented on it about about he said, dance my salty non-control puppets dance, and it's a picture of Joker dancing down the steps. Oh man, this tweet, you showed it to me, and I immediately tweeted the Russell Westbrook gif, the little gif where he's like getting interviewed. But it's just like, how is this deck more unfair than something like Nexus? Like, you're not going to complain about Nexus, but you're going to complain about just simple old old school blue-white control. Like,
right. Well, to be fair, Nexus is banned, so maybe a few days ago
sure.
he was tweeting about Nexus.
Oh my god,
I don't know.
We should go back and
we could check.
But even stuff. I mean, there aren't really any combo decks really in Pioneer at the moment that I can really think of.
Right. I just think when you have a blue-white deck that's in the format, that's a healthy format, because blue-white control, a deck like this, it's all about interaction. Like, you play something, and if I don't have an answer, quick enough, then you're going to win the game. If I do have an answer, then we're going to keep going back and forth here. We're going to, you play something, I play something, you play something, I play something.
Yeah.
It's interactive Magic. It's not you play a few cards, dump your entire deck into your graveyard, and win like that, like Dredge does.
Yeah.
That doesn't interact at all. It's kind of like, I don't care what I'm playing against. Yeah, Dredge doesn't care what's across the table. That, to me, then go play Solitaire then.
The fact that he plays Dredge just makes it like the biggest, like, are you kidding me moment? Like,
right.
Bruh, you play one of the most uninteractive decks, like just literally the most busted mechanic, maybe outside of Storm, in the entire game, and you're gonna, throw shade on blue-white, like simple, good old-fashioned, like Richard Garfield intended it, blue-white control.
Right.
Come on, man. Cold take.
It's bad. But
I'm glad you brought that to my attention, because I mean, we could do an entire episode on this tweet.
I think we could.
But yeah, we don't have time for that. We just reached the 1 hour mark.
Yep.
But yeah, that's 2019. I am super stoked for 2020. I'll let you say where people can find you and all of your socials and everything, and then we can wrap this bad boy up.
All right. Yeah. So you can find me on Twitter at Affinity for Blue. Actually, I just noticed that you have Affinity for Islands there.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
No worries. It's supposed to be Affinity for Islands. It just doesn't fit, and so I had to cut it short. So it's Affinity for Blue on Twitter. Yo MTG Taps is my podcast, which we release an episode every other week. We're on Cool Stuff Inc. So you can check us out there, and it's myself and my co-host, and we just kind of talk about whatever we feel like talking about with Magic, and usually it's Pioneer, it's Modern, and it's Standard. Mostly leaning Pioneer lately because it's the best exciting. Format. Says the Control Freak podcast. Yeah.
If you hear it here, it's got to be true.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, that's where you can find me. But yeah, thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. Anytime. You're always a blast. I'm upset that the Browns season kind of ends where it always does.
I mean, the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior. Don't pick the Browns as your new team when you switch next time. Look around.
I don't think the Browns are going anywhere, and I'm not attached to them in terms of like proximity, so I'm pretty sure I'm just a Browns fan for life.
Well, maybe one year, it'll make it that much sweeter when they actually do succeed. I just don't know how old we'll be when that happens.
Well, hopefully we'll still be around.
Yeah, hopefully.
Have faith, right?
For your sake, yeah.
But yeah, I appreciate you for coming on. Happy holidays, by the time this comes out, the holidays will be pretty much wrapped up, and we'll be looking
Hope you all had happy holidays.
Yes. But yeah, everyone, housekeeping stuff, the boring stuff here at the end. Thanks, everybody, for watching or listening. If you're on YouTube, make sure to hit that subscribe button and that thumbs up. If you're listening on podcasts, thank you. Feel free to follow. And we do have the Patreon. Again, check that out, patreon.com/LesAlex. Of course, all that stuff will be in the show notes. Shout out to the sponsor, Solitary Pro. They but they help me put on the highest production I can, even whenever I misspell people's Twitter handles or just straight up get them wrong. But additionally, I have Control Freak t-shirts that when this goes live, they'll be on sale for 2 more days. It's like a campaign on Bonfire. That information will be down there. So if you dig the podcast and you don't really necessarily want to become a patron, but you do want to get something in return for your support, it's a great way to show support, and you get an awesome t-shirt, hoodie, or crew neck in a bunch of different colors. It's like blue, black, gray, pink, a lot of good stuff. But yeah, everyone, I'm looking forward to 2020. I got a lot of stuff I'm working on that's in, we're cooking it up. It's going to be a good year. I've been streaming a bunch. I'm streaming 4 nights a week. Shout out to my girlfriend. She's awesome. She's really working with me to make that be a thing. And we've been really kind of popping off we've been doing late night streams, and it's been kind of popping. Like, we got 97 viewers the other night, so that was crazy.
Nice. Yeah.
But yeah, thanks everybody. 2019 has been awesome. 31 episodes in the book. I'm not stopping. I'm going to be going to more events next year too. So yeah, I'm getting stickers because we just reached the first Patreon goal. It's crazy. It's been awesome. I know I'm kind of ranting, but I have a lot of stuff to say that I just want to get out there. I know you're like, come on, man, wrap it up. But
hey, no, you do your thing. I know how it is.
Yeah, I'm just so excited about 2020 because 2019 was like this idea of a podcast popped in my head. And I was like, why don't I just do it myself and make it about the deck and the format at the time was Modern that I love. And if I love it, I think people are really going to kind of attach to it because I do love this game and I do love blue and white cards. Yeah. And, we've got over 100 followers on Spotify and over like at 90 on Podbean. So I'm just, thanks everybody. If you've ever said anything positive or negative, like even if you clicked it and you didn't like it and you've said, hey, your stuff's crap, just thanks for the feedback.
The feedback, absolutely. It's like just the interaction the feedback is worthwhile,
Oh yeah. Yeah. Thank you everyone. I'm gonna call it an episode. Appreciate everyone. Thanks for watching or listening. Thanks for the support throughout the year. And as always, be kind to one another, Magic players. Have a great night.
Go Ravens. I don't know if that got in there or not.